Good morning and welcome to Hatfield Sessions. This morning, we have Pastor Louis Kotze, the senior pastor of Hatfield Christian Church, back with us. He'll be teaching us more about saying yes to kindness. Just to give a taste of what's to come, Pastor Louis, what one thing do you hope we remember from today's message?
Probably that God is kind.
Now I'm really excited. But first, of course, we cannot forget to say hi to our fantastic panelists. Pastor Mobatu Bahana has been a pastor here at Hatfield Christian Church for 14 years. Not just that, she is a wife and mother of two beautiful girls and always has a valuable piece of wisdom to share with those around her. Pastor Mal Radley is also a pastor here at Hatfield Christian Church. Mal has a passion for teaching the Word of God and has led various Bible study and community groups over the years. We're so blessed to have Pastor Jack Ferreira joining us. Pastor Jack was a pastor here at Hatfield Christian Church for 27 years and has been a husband for 44 years. He's also the father of 2 grown children and the grandfather of 4 grandchildren. Without further ado, Pastor Louis, over to you.
Thank you, Nemi, and thank you to the kind applause from the audience today. We're talking about saying yes to Jesus, and we particularly want to talk about yes to kindness today. But let me take it from a bit of a different approach and talk about the negative side or the opposite of kindness, which is unkindness. Have you experienced some unkindness recently? Have you had somebody cut you off on the road, perhaps? Somebody say something nasty towards you, somebody being impatient to you recently, and you can remember how it made you feel and what it did for you when you experienced somebody being unkind. I wonder why it is that we're so often so unkind with one another. We can get so irritated with each other, so short, so just breaking each other down. Why is it that we do that? None of us like it when people do it to us, but yet we do it so often to others. We even sometimes, I think, have a negative view of kindness. It's often in our culture and in our world that you see it portrayed that kindness is weakness. We think it's weak people that are kind. It's the strong people that take the earth. It's the strong people that lead, that can be tough and that can do the harsh things and be unkind to people. Those are the people that get ahead. But the kind people, we appreciate them, but they sort of always take the back seat and they're around the periphery of life. The Bible talks about it, and it uses a particular word to describe kindness from a biblical viewpoint, and it uses the word meekness. Jesus said that blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Jesus said that the earth actually belongs to people that have a kindness to them. So that stands in contrast with our culture, doesn't it? The world that we live in, which we view as a dog-eat-dog kind of world. We view it as it's imperative of each and every one of us to get ahead, and whatever you need to do that, when you have to do the tough thing, you have to do it, because this world is harsh. And yes, it's true, we experience it as harsh so often. But how is it then that Jesus says the meek will inherit the earth? Let's talk a little bit first about what does that word meekness mean. I've heard various people describe the word meekness. The word meekness, somebody said, is strength clothed in gentleness. Somebody said it's the intersection of patience, of humility, and of gentleness. It's this ability that some people have to experience the harshness and the hardness of life, yet they do not become hard themselves. It's this ability, the Bible talks about long suffering, that people can absorb all the stuff of this world, but it doesn't shape them, doesn't make them become the same. They actually become the opposite, where they can take the unkindness that is hurled at them. Sometimes it feels like on any given day, I don't know which hand grenade of unkindness is going to be lobbed my way by somebody for some or other reason. These people that are meek can take that and deal with it. It's not that they don't feel it. It's not that they don't experience it. But they can do something with it and not let it affect them in the way they behave towards others. That's what meekness is. Jesus said, those are the people to whom the world belongs. I think he was trying to say to us, those people that shape the world. It's those people that'll make this world a better place. It's those people that can have that level of kindness. I think we may find it difficult to believe that experientially all the time, but I do think we do in some way agree with that and say, I think we'd often say to one another, if we can just have more kindness in our world, it'll be such a better place to live in. But then we turn around and we be unkind to somebody because I need to get ahead. I need to get what I need and what I want in life. In James chapter 4, James addresses a group of people and he asks them this question. He says, why is there so much unkindness among you? Because this was a real group of people that he was talking to and they were struggling with one another. And then he answers the question in James 4 verse 2. He says, you are so unkind with one another. You fight, you quarrel because of the desires that you have inside of you for things that you want, and it puts you at war with other people. Because you want what they've got and you can't have it, and so therefore you fight with them. You treat them badly because they have what you want. I think that's true. There's something in that, isn't it? How we think that the people that have, we are in competition with them. And the way we can get over them and get past them and get what we want, even if we have to take it from them, is by being unkind. We have very little grace for people that are just a little too slow. Or a little, too much for us. We don't want people to take our time or our efforts or our money unless it's going to produce for us, because we want so much, so badly. And therefore we build a world that is not based on meekness, gentleness, kindness. In Exodus, Moses had a meeting with God. He saw God face to face. Not literally face to face, but had a visible experience with God. A real, God allowed him to see a little bit of himself with his physical eyes. And when he met God, he described God. And how he described God was this. He said, he is kind, gentle, slow to anger, full of mercy. Now, if the God of the universe is kind, that means if he created everything as an expression of himself, he built a universe that is supposed to reflect kindness if he is kind. Am I right? So therefore, it lines up with what Jesus said, the meek will inherit the earth, because the earth was built by a kind God. So kind is powerful. Powerful enough to give rise to everything. Imagine if we lived in a world that was built on the reality of a God that was vengeful and angry. A God that was irritated. A God that had no mercy and patience for us. That whenever we stepped out of line, he would just hurl down lightning bolts from heaven and just be like, I'm so done with you. I can't handle this anymore. Imagine if that was the God behind the universe. Now, I know there's some people that have had some really bad experiences in life and maybe rightfully wonder, where is this God that is supposed to be so kind if I experience so much unkindness? The fact is, a kind God created a universe that is supposed to function on kindness. We rejected him, rebelled against him, and we decided we want, and now we are making this an unkind world because of our rebellion. James, when he describes this unkindness that we so commonly do with one another, he also tells us how to deal with it, how to stop being so unkind. And he gives us this simple instruction. He says, you fight with one another thinking that that's the way you're going to get what you want. But instead of doing that, you should go to God and ask him what you want, and He will give it to you. I don't have to compete with you. I don't have to be unkind to you so that I can have what I need. God is the source of everything, and He is kind. We've spoken in these sessions before about His generosity, about Him being good. He wants to give to us. He wants to provide for us. That's the way He made the universe, is to give to us generously. We've spoken about generosity. He wants to bless us. That's His predisposition. That's the attitude He has towards us. So when I come to Him and I ask, and I do it from the right place and the right motives, He wants to give to me. So I don't have to fight with somebody else and be unkind with somebody else. I can go to God. But now, we've broken relationship with God. So instead of going to Him, we rather want to take care of this ourselves. Instead of trusting Him, allowing Him to be kind to us, we want to take and manipulate and strong arm. We believe this world is the survival of the fittest. So when I say yes to Jesus, I say yes to kindness. First of all, to experiencing His kindness towards me. Him actually changing the way I see the world. Showing me kindness so that I stop seeing this world as this dog-eat-dog reality, but start seeing it as looking through all the unkindness, and I start seeing behind it is a kind God, and that becomes more and more real to me. And the more I can have that, the more I can say, okay, let me respond in kind and be kind to others. I can do that. And it's that kind of kindness that changes the world. You know what it's like when you walk into a room and everybody's on edge and everybody's difficult and everybody's, just irritated. How you can change the atmosphere with an act of kindness or a kind word. You can change something. How our nation was changed in the 90s when kindness was given in surprising places. Undeserved kindness. We didn't deserve kindness, but yet we're given it. And it's that kind of kindness that changes things. I can only do that because I'm secure. God's taken care of me, therefore I can be kind to others. So I want to invite you. Let's say yes to Jesus and yes to His kindness towards us, and yes to being kind as He has been kind towards us. Thank you for being a great audience. We're going to have some good time in our panel discussion. So over to Nemi. Thank you very much.
Wow, a necessary and challenging reminder for us all. Thank you so much, Pastor Louis. So panel, based on what Pastor Louis just shared, what do you think about this question? Despite everyone agreeing that kindness is vital to society, why don't we see it very often?
I'd like to propose an answer to that, in that people are inherently selfish, and they are focusing on themselves most of the time, and they are unable to see the next person, and not realizing that each person is made in God's image, and that they have a story to tell, just like you have. And they have a story that is made up of their hopes and dreams and challenges and fears that have defined them, and they need the opportunity to speak and to be given the dignity of telling their story. And so if you become more aware of other people than yourself, it's an ideal opportunity to extend kindness.
And I think it's also to something we spoke about in another session, about how God made each of us with significance and value. And that's wonderful to think about myself, but I've also got to remember that's true of every other person I deal with. So whenever I'm dealing with even the most irritating person, they have value. Even the person, that's why Jesus said in Matthew 25, they didn't say, it's how you treat the least is how you treat me. We all have least people in our lives, the people that we think the least of, the people whose opinion doesn't matter to us, the people who we would rather cut out. And it's those people, how we treat them shows how much value we actually put on people, I think. And that's the challenge. And I think that's to your point, because that doesn't serve our needs, our selfish desires, to be kind to those people, because they can't do anything for us, they can't help us. And so, yeah.
Interesting to note that when you are kind to someone, even if you don't feel particularly loving to them in your heart, but you act kindly, eventually your feelings towards them change. So I find this is true in marriage sometimes. In marriage, sometimes you don't feel particularly loving. And if you choose to act in accordance with the way you feel less loving. But if you choose to extend grace and to be kind, actually sort of loving feelings start to return. And so it's quite amazing the way the dynamic works.
We're now going to take questions from the audience.
How do we balance between being kind and creating boundaries to protect yourself? And can those boundaries prevent us from living a kind life?
We all need healthy boundaries to live our lives, to be healthy in our lives. There are certain things that we have to, sometimes just keep at a little bit of distance and behavior from others. Like if you're working in a job situation, for instance, your working hours may be, 8 to 5 or 9 to 4 or whatever it is. But I guarantee you, your workplace will always want you to work more than that. And while we always want to do the more, at some point I have to say, listen, I'm also a person that has a responsibility for my family and with my family. And it's not my employer's job to worry about my family, it's my job. But therefore I have to patrol that boundary, that when I'm at home, I'm allowed to be with my family or whatever the case is. And I have to keep those boundaries. And to me, the issue there is not being weak and just letting people abuse you and having no boundaries, but it is to, with kindness, be able to say, now, this is my boundary, and how do I keep this boundary while honoring everybody on both sides of the boundary? I can do that with kindness and with strength. When I'm strong in my kindness, I don't take it personal. I don't freak out because people are trying to push my boundaries. But I can stand. I can handle that. When you work with people, I think like we all experienced in working with people all the time, specifically when you're working with people that have great needs, you have to be kind to them sometimes by putting boundaries in place. I can't solve your problems for you. I can help you solve your problems, because sometimes people want to give their problems to us to solve it for them, and we have to help keep that boundary, but we do that kindly. We don't say to the person, no, we're not going to help you. We say, we're going to help you, but this is your responsibility. This is what I can do. This is what you must do. And I think if we're strong in who we are, what we're called to do, we can rest in that, then we can patrol boundaries. Otherwise, we also allow ourselves to be abused because I want to be kind. I want everybody to like me. I want everybody to talk good about me. So I do things that I know I shouldn't be doing. I go too far in situations, and then I miss the point also.
It's like when you say yes to something, by default you are saying no to something else. And we need wisdom to be able to know what are the things we should be saying yes to and what are the things we should be saying no to.
Counseling also gives one of the best examples for me, in that a counselee would walk in and they would have a session, and at the end of the session, the counselor would say, please do this, and that before the next session. And then when that person comes the next session, they say, oh, I couldn't do that. I was too busy. And that's where a counselor would then say, because you were busy, find time to be able to do that before we proceed with this session. So what has the counselor done there? They've drawn a line there for the counselee to recognize that it's not the counselor's responsibility to make them feel whole and free, but it's their responsibility. So when you are, I see this as a way of being kind to the counselee, because the counselor wants the counselee to be free, because their responsibility is to cause no harm to the counselee. So that's one of the examples there. They live well afterwards, by the way. Yeah.
Well, maybe I could just give an example. Before I became a pastor, I was working in a company I was 2IC in the company, and my superior was a very hard-working person. Maybe a workaholic would be a good description. He would work all hours of the day, and then every Saturday as well. And I realized at some point that I was being drawn into that kind of lifestyle. And I remember having a lunch arrangement with him to tell him that, look, I'm prepared to take a salary cut, even to say no to promotion, but I'm not prepared to work the hours that you're working. I have a family to look after, and Saturdays are not negotiable. I need to be at home, and I need to limit the hours per day in the week as well. And it was interesting that shortly after that, I was promoted, actually became a director of the company. But it was just interesting. I needed to draw a line. Because if I just kept quiet, I would have been drawn into it, and it would have become an expectation. But that's how we do it. We work 6 days a week, Monday to Saturday, and that's how it is. But I was able to draw a line, to put a border in place, and there was a very positive response to that eventually. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions?
Pastor Jack, in light of the fact that Pastor Louis said that kindness can also be viewed as meekness, as Christians, are we expected to be meek all the time, or are there times when we can lay aside our meekness to be less meek?
I think an answer to that is a general attitude of kindness and honoring the person that you're speaking to. But there are occasions that arise that need to take a stand for truth, because kindness can be abused. It can be out of balance if there's no truth and a structure that needs to scaffold the kindness. So kindness has its place, but not to an extreme. There always is a time when we need to take a stand for what is truth.
But I do think from a spiritual point of view, we also understand that the unkindness doesn't originate from that person. There's an ideology or a spiritual principle or a force behind that's why we talk about the devil. And Jesus said he comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And he is the originator of that evil. So I need to stand with my sword and use my sword. The Bible talks about the sword of truth against the lies, the abuse of the enemy, not against the person, even though they may be perpetuating it. But I can speak to them truth and even feel like I'm not being kind, because often the kindest thing you can do is to say, no, that's not allowed. That's not right. So I don't think we must confuse kindness with just letting anything go. That's sometimes really unkind. If I'm not stopping somebody doing something that's going to hurt them, I'm being unkind, not being kind.
Thank you, everyone. And thanks to all of you who've tuned in today. Join us for our live service this morning, either online or in person, where Pastor Louis will be sharing even more on what it means to say yes to kindness. If you'd like more information about our church, you can visit our website at hatfield.co.za. May we all be a little kinder this week. Until next time, goodbye.